Hello darlings and happy Halloween. In today's video we're going to be reviewing I Am Not Your Final Girl by Claire C. Holland. If you couldn't tell by the general vibe of this video, my makeup, or the title of the book, this is actually a horror poetry collection, and it's the first horror poetry collection I've ever read, and it was very exciting, so let's get to it. Before we get started, let's address the elephant in the room. I realized that today was supposed to be my Poetry 101 video about imagery. However, I decided to put it off for two specific reasons. The first reason is that I'm including some B-roll footage, I think is the proper term, in the imagery video, and I'm not used to editing that, so I need to take a little bit extra time to edit that well. And the second reason is because Halloween is my favorite time of year. I love the spooky season. I was actually born the day before Halloween, which will be the day that you're viewing this video. So if you feel like wishing me happy birthday, you can in the comments below. But regardless of all of that, I kind of forgot to plan something. And I'm hoping to get better at planning so I can release things that are more relevant to the season and the time. But that's why I decided to do this review, because at least it is horror based and it is very spooky and Halloweeny, and so that's why I've decided to post this today and postpone the Poetry 101 video about imagery for another week, but also because I needed more time to edit that video as well. There's so much to say about Claire C. Holland's I Am Not Your Final Girl, but let's start with the basics. The basic concept of this book takes final girls from horror movies and writes a poem about them and their situation. So each poem is actually named after a final girl, and below the title is the name of the movie they appeared in the year of release. So for example, the very first poem is Rosemary, and it says Rosemary's Baby 1968 right under the title, which is Rosemary. The book is divided into 4 chapters: assault, possession, destruction, and transformation. Claire picked her final girls very carefully for each of these chapters, and I personally feel that the poems reflect the chapter titles very well. I Am Not Your Final Girl is a fearless collection of raw emotion and feminist rage. When we say phrases like feminist rage, I feel like people get a certain image in their mind. But make no mistake, the anger and rage in this book feels authentic to the characters and their stories. Every emotion and trauma is carefully crafted in these pieces. It's clear that the author was familiar with these characters and the worlds they came from. You can feel the love and respect the author has for these characters. As a genre, horror is used as a metaphor, a mirror, we could say, to reflect society. The tendency the genre has to torture, violate, and kill women only serves as a reflection of reality. Claire captures this with gripping lines like, "A future built on my body pinned beneath yours," from the poem Selena. And it's not the devil you need to worry about, but the devil you know, from the poem Rosemary. The book also addresses the difficulties of motherhood, the trauma of surviving, and the power in fighting back. I highly recommend this book to anyone, but especially to all women. Now, here are some poems that stood out to me. I'm just going to list a few, and then I'll read one. Bia, India, Female Part 2, Amy, Selena, Dana, and Sophia. But the one I'll be reading today is Laurie. Before we get into the reading, I just want to say that if you're not a horror fan, and you're afraid that you may not be able to understand or relate to the poems in this book, then consider this. I read this as a part of the poetry book club I'm in. It was my turn to host, and this was one of 3 books that I offered everyone for us to read. We vote on which one we read. This was the most voted book. I'm the only person in the club that has seen the majority of these horror movies. Most of the people in the club hadn't seen any of them, or had only seen maybe 2. I asked them if not knowing the movies affected their ability to understand or relate to the poems, and they all said no, and they all seemed to really enjoy the book. So now I'll be reading Laurie from I Am Not Your Final Girl. Laurie, Halloween, 1978. I ask you to tell me of a town where this hasn't happened, where some brute dressed in black hasn't donned a mask, shadowed a woman, called himself a monster to blot out his own morality. Tell me why I should mythologize this. Let his shape grow larger than the women crouched with coat hangers, with makeshift daggers as sturdy as their hearts. Something can be vulnerable and powerful at once. But you cannot understand this, and I have grown so weary of trying to explain. You say you want to protect us, but the method, blunt pills forced to mouths, a technique for hysteria, is all wrong. It abrades. White fences are only made of wood. They splinter so easily. So I decided to read Laurie. It's not actually the poem I read at my poetry book club. We usually take turns writing our favorite poems. But I decided to read Laurie because I feel like Laurie's one of the best written poems in the book, in the sense that it represents the movie very well, the theme, and can also stand on its own as well. And I think most people are familiar with Halloween and Michael Myers, so I thought that this would be a great poem to read to you guys. So that's what I did. But now, as always, I'll read a poem that I wrote inspired by this collection. Now, the poem I wrote inspired by this collection isn't actually inspired directly by the poem I read either. The poem that I had read in the Poetry Book Club Zoom meeting was The Female Part 2, which is an absolutely amazing poem. And it's not based off of Laurie either. We make a bunch of prompts inspired by the books, and then we take the prompts and we write a poem. And so this is kind of an interesting poem in that it's kind of inspired by the whole of the book, as well as a few other prompts that I had used. But I'll just get into reading it. This is a rough draft. I still need to edit it, and it's nowhere near finished. So this poem is based off the general idea of the book. I decided to make myself the final girl of my own horror movie. So, here we go. Ashley, The Things We Learn, 1996. She was grown in the dark of her mother's womb, as we all are. But from the moment her eyes were bathed in fluorescent light, darkness was her enemy. She knew then, at birth, that darkness would never hug her again. She became a sun chaser, light addict, hater of clouds. If the night had no stars, no moon, I would never step out in it, she said. Never let its velvet raven cloak drown me. The darkness is inescapable. Our bodies cast shadows, hollow doppelgangers that stalk our every move. She would learn that the hard way. Learn that hands are used for more than holding, that they can be stone cold and midnight ashen, that they can grab her in the brightest light and she won't see them coming. So that's all I've got for this poem for now. I want to edit it and do some more writing on it, but that's the rough draft version, and I like where it's going a lot. So the beginning, where, you know, the title, Ashley, The Things We Learned 1996. So I just kind of decided to make up like my own title to my own horror movie. So I called it The Things We Learn. And I don't know why I chose 1996. Like, I kind of do, but I'm deciding on if that's the year I want to keep. It's not like my birth year, which you might have thought by the beginning of the poem, but I want to think more on that, and we'll see. Once again, I highly recommend I'm Not Your Final Girl. This is a fantastic collection, and I really love the cover front and back. It looks so cool. It has like stickers on it that are like, they're not real, but like they look like stickers, horror and like Be Kind Rewind, and it like has that old like VHS feel to it, and I really love that. Well, darlings, that's it for today's video. Before I do my normal outro, I just want to give a few shout outs here. I first want to shout out my friend Patrick, who bought me all the lights that I'm now using. I don't know if you can tell that I'm using lights now because it's actually super stormy outside and there's like no sunlight being cast in. But I'll insert a small video of the lighting setup. So this is the video of my lighting setup now. But yeah, the string lights and the 2 box lights that I'm using at the moment were all from my friend Patrick. So thank you so much. I think you just get tired of me complaining about poor lighting in my videos all the time. I also want to shout out 2 other channels that have just been very supportive of me since I started my YouTube journey, and they are Laurie and Lauren Adele. I will list them both here. I appreciate them both very much for their constant support of me and my channel. So thank you guys so much. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. And don't forget the tippity tap in the comments below to tell me what you thought of this video. If you made it this far, please pick up your bonus points. And always remember to rise from your ashes, darlings. Until next time. Bye. I want to just with this big sharp Holland knife over. Don't want to be Michael Myers right now. I know what I'm saying. Just stop, okay? I love you. Let's try that again. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't you do it.